All right, Bob, wait, hold. What are you riding here?
Bonafide 97, you know, this is the big one, I think, the 189. It's a good size.
All right, let's see how it does. Yeah!
So fun!
First
Big rails, man, oh my god.
First impressions?
First impressions, super good through chopped up snow. That was all chopped up. And then enough playfulness to kind of release the edge, and it was a blast, man. Loved it.
Phew. Hi skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com. Another video from here in my basement working from home, and another 2021 ski review. And I guarantee this is one that people are going to be pretty interested in and pretty excited about. This is the 2021 Blizzard Bonafide 97. Bonafide's one of those skis, you know, it's one of those skis that's reached like iconic status in the ski industry. A lot of people know it, a lot of people look to it for its power and stability and just overall really high performing all mountain ski. It's a ski we've talked about a lot over the years. 2 sheets of metal, it rips. You know, I think part of the conversation over the years has been that because it's so powerful, it's a pretty unforgiving ski at times, not really the most appropriate thing for an intermediate, stuff like that. And there have been some changes to the ski to make it a little more forgiving, which we've talked about in the past. You know, this is the 2020 version, and when that version first came out, we had similar conversations. There were tweaks made to the ski to make it a little bit more forgiving, perhaps a little bit more approachable for the non 1% expert skiers, stuff like that. But part of that conversation has always also been that they don't want to dumb it down. So before we really jump into anything on this ski, that's like probably the most important thing to remember, is even though they're making changes and the goal is to kind of make it more accessible, more forgiving, stuff like that, they didn't take anything out of this ski. And we're going to talk about it, but if anything, they only really added things to it, both in the sense that there's added technology in this ski, and there's also actually added material in this ski too. So let's talk about it. It's now most obviously the Bonafide 97, so it's 97 underfoot. We'll talk a little bit more about shape in a second here, but I want to talk about construction first, because I think that's probably the more important story, although they're both fairly important. But this is now using what Blizzard is calling Trublend technology, which is a pretty important concept to kind of wrap your mind around. Not only because it's important in this ski and important in how it works and how all the different lengths work together, but also important because Blizzard's using it in other skis too. So the Brahma 88 gets it, women's Black Pearl skis get it. So just as a way of understanding their skis in general, understanding Trublend is pretty important. And what is Trublend? It's basically a combination of 2 different types of wood in the core. One of them is less dense and lighter, one of them is more dense, and those 2 materials are poplar and beech. So basically the whole wood core is poplar, and then there are vertically laminated strips of the denser wood that are specifically placed. You know, it's specifically engineered where these strips go. There's more of them underfoot, and then they kind of taper and end as you get towards the tips and tails. And what's important about this is they're different in each length. So the 171 Bonafide 97 has a different design of those denser strips of wood than, say, the 189. What did I start with? 171. Every length is different. which is really cool. And basically the idea behind this is it allows Blizzard to really custom design or custom engineer the flex pattern in each ski. So we've talked about it before. It's not something we talk about a lot, but if you put the same construction in every single ski, it's really interesting because often the shorter skis are the stiffest, which doesn't really make sense because the shorter skis are going to be chosen by lighter weight skiers, less aggressive skiers, etc., 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 smaller skiers, so they shouldn't be stiffer. So the way that they're designing these skis and the way that they're building them is they're specifically changing the amount of material in the ski, and specifically that denser wood. They're changing the amount and the position of it in each length to get the performance they want in that length, which is just fascinating and something that I guess across the board we're seeing some other companies do, and I think it's just like a testament to the amount of engineering and the amount of technology that's going into skis now. You know, I think like a few years ago it was hard to imagine like what the next step would be, and it seems like the next step is really like digging into the detailed construction of the ski and making tweaks there instead of like massive changes to shape or wild new materials or stuff like that. So that's it. That's Trublend. Again, that's probably the most important thing to understand. Then there's also still 2 sheets of metal in this ski. Gosh, if there wasn't, I feel like it just wouldn't be a Bonafide, right? So still two full sheets of metal. There's actually an additional sheet underfoot that I can see, and underneath that sheet, that additional top sheet, there's rubber too. So kind of like that smooth vibration damping effect of rubber that we've talked about is there right underfoot. So those are the major changes to construction. There's still bidirectional carbon in the tips and tails like we've talked about before with Bonafides. That stays, but really the big change is Trublend, and I guess the added sheet of metal on top too. And that Trublend is if you, I'm sure you picked up on it, but it's basically allowing the tips and tails to be a little bit softer flexing, which is where some of that forgiveness comes into play, the extra forgiveness. Now shape, I think we'll spend less time talking about shape, but it's important too, and I brought the 2020 ski so we could specifically compare shape. There's actually higher camber height in the 2021 ski. I noticed it this morning as I was looking at them side by side. It's pretty minimal, but it is like a couple of millimeters more camber. Now there's more taper, especially in the tip. So this tip is more rounded, where the previous Bonafides, you know, the widest part of the ski was further towards the end. This isn't what I would necessarily call tapered, but it's more rounded. Now, contrary to that, there's actually less rocker. So there's higher camber, less rocker, and a little bit more taper. At first that didn't make sense to me, but the more I thought about it, it makes a lot of sense, because if the tips and tails are softer flexing, you don't need as much rocker up there, and basically what you're getting, because you get like longer edge contact but a softer flexing tip, you get better snow contact, better snow feel, and it's an easier way to manipulate what the ski is doing. You know, if you have a stiff ski with rocker, you can't necessarily get it to like bend more in certain sections. So it's a similar goal, I guess. You know, let's kind of look at it, and I'll show you what I mean. But that's how I'm thinking about it. Is it's a similar goal, but in this ski they started the rocker way back here, where in the new ski it's much more closer to the tip, and then same is true in the tail. I mean, there's way longer rocker in the tail. So I thought that was really interesting. It's softer flexing, this new ski, in the tips and tails, but there's less rocker. And then, I know, I'm sorry that there's a lot to talk about with this ski, but I think all this stuff is important, so I'm hoping I'm not dragging on too long here. Another important thing about this ski, and something that adds to the whole picture and the whole concept of this ski, is there's now 5 choices for length. And I think that's really important, because it's basically, the goal of this ski is that you can pick and choose what length has the performance that works for you, instead of just what the right length is for you. Now let me try and explain that a little bit better. So previously on this ski, with 4 length options, For me, I felt like the 180 on paper, that was the length for me. Like, I guess you could make an argument that 173 would work, but I don't generally like skiing things that short. So for me, 180 was the length. That was my Bonafide length. Now, there's a 177 and there's a 183. So it goes 165, 171, 177, 183, and then 189. So instead of 8 centimeter jumps in length, you get 6 centimeter jumps in length, which means that I could ski the 177 and the 183. Both of those are perfectly appropriate lengths for me, and it basically allows me to choose, do I want a slightly stiffer, longer ski or a slightly softer, flexing, shorter ski? So we live in ski in Stowe. Basically, I don't technically live in Stowe anymore, but just about. If I was buying a Bonafide for use here, I'd probably buy the 177 now, because it is a little soft flexing in the tips. It's a little more maneuverable, a little bit more forgiving. If I lived out west, I would probably choose the 183. And I think that's an important way to think about it. I brought in Bob, Marcus, and Keenan, all three of whom are coworkers of mine. Brought them into a discussion about the Bonafide, which is going to be the remainder of this video. We're going to talk way more about performance. But basically what I'll leave you with before that is it's still a Bonafide. This thing still rips. I mean, that's always my concern when companies change skis like this, is I don't want them to lose. I don't want it to lose what's made it special, and that to me is power and vibration damping and edge grip, and it still has that, but it's just easier to release the tips and tails. There's more compliance up there. It's not as jarring if you hit like little change, like firm changes in snow condition or in snow surface. You know, the previous ski was like kind of jarring at times. Still really good. I love skiing that thing, but this is just, I guess this is a ski that I would enjoy skiing. If I was skiing this every day, I'd much rather be on this version than that version, just because it's a little bit more maneuverable, a little bit easier going, a little bit more forgiving, and then when you want to just ski the mid-body of the ski and get all that power, it's still all there. If anything, there's more, you know, like that dense wood that they added and the extra sheet of metal and the rubber, like thing is as powerful as you could want underfoot, but then we get a little bit more compliance in the tips and tails, which is great. So I'll leave with that. If you want to keep watching, watch the discussion with Bob and Marcus and Keenan and myself. I know this was a long one. Thank you for bearing with me. I think it's an important ski to talk about, and an important ski to give it the credit that it deserves and the attention that it deserves, and I didn't want to gloss over any changes, even though some of those changes are pretty subtle. So that's it. That's the Bonafide 97. Thank you, and we will see you guys soon. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Great. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
Good to see everyone. For our audience, if you don't know, this is Bob, and this is Bob in the upper left here. Marcus is below me, and then that's Keenan over there diagonally down from me. Keenan joined our staff this past winter and was awesome. And all three of you got to test this Bonafide 97. So I thought it'd be cool. I got to ski it too, but I actually missed the day that is my background right now because I was still dealing with a broken collarbone back then. So you guys had a really fun day on it, ton of soft snow. So I thought we would get together as a group and just kind of chat about its performance and what you guys think. So I think we'll just kind of go around and Keenan, why don't you start us off? Tell us about just your experience on the Bonafide 97.
Yeah, so the Bonafide, a classic ski, obviously. I used to ski the Brahma almost every day. Love the stability of it. Think it's kind of a nostalgic shape, flat tail, decent amount of rocker. But definitely they've done some real nice updates to the Trublend wood core. Definitely makes it pretty intuitive and easier to move around.
Yeah.
Just a disclaimer, I was on the 183, which is a little shorter than what I'd normally ski. I'm a pretty big guy.
Sure.
But honestly, I wasn't really wanting a lot more ski. Maybe when the snow was a little bit deeper, it would have been helpful.
Yep.
But I found that in the bumps, in tight situations, that 183 was much more manageable. And yeah, it was had a blast on it. It's one of those skis that comes to mind when you think of a hard charging forward skier
Yep.
who wants to be over the tips all the time. And yeah, it likes to go fast. It requires an active skiing style, and it really, when you get it on edge, it'll hold. And
Yeah. So
it's
I
very
think it's.
versatile.
Would you say that it's safe to say that it kind of retained the power and edge grip that we expect from it, but just a little bit more compliance, a little bit more forgiveness?
Yeah, yeah, and I think through the years, it's been getting more and more accessible,
Sure.
and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's not
No.
taking away from the hard charging performance that the Bonafide was built on.
Awesome.
But I think it's more and more accessible to more people every year.
Sweet. Now, Bob, I know you got to ski both the 183 and the 189, and it seems like you had a preference for the 189. But given the new Trublend technology and how it's intended to provide different performance and different feel for each length, just give us some thoughts on just how you kind of felt on the 183 versus the 189.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, actually among these three guys, I'm the shortest one at 6'2".
Yeah.
So it's, and I would normally ski on that 189, that big size. I skied the 183 first and thought it was fine, but I definitely felt like, that the tip hooked up a little bit too quick. It was just a little bit, sketchy for me on the turns. So, my initial impression was that, oh, I'm not sure about this new ski. Then I got on the 189 and, just a totally different experience. Sometimes the tune has something to do with that. Sometimes it's, a bunch of different variables are in play there, but, hop on the 189 and it's like, oh, okay, this is what I'm looking for here. And we had a nice soft snow day, good bumps, pop out on the groomer at the bottom and rip some GS turns. So just, I had a, pretty stark different experience with those two sizes.
Yep.
I, definitely mentioned to Keenan that he, should try to get on that big ski. Obviously ran out of time, but, I did notice a pretty big difference between those two sizes.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be, I think that's kind of the theme of these skis, and that's going to be the conversation that we have over the next year or the next 2 years or what have you, is each length is quite a bit different than the other, and that's the intention. And there's really, there'll be a bit of a decision-making process and a thought process for some skiers, but it's really cool that, that it's the performance matches each length. Like I think back to previous versions of the Bonafide, that 166 was like really stiff. And now like the 165 or that 171, they're actually softer flexing than the longer skis, which I think is really cool. And now, Bob, on that 189, even, in the footage, you're just ripping bumps, which clearly you have a lot of experience skiing moguls, but it looks like the edge release and the tail is quite a bit easier on the new version.
Yeah, and I've skied every version of Bonafide since their inception, and they've definitely gone from that planky style to the more active that we're seeing in this 2021 ski. And like Keenan said, like, it's not saying that it's a worse ski. It just performs differently. And so that tail release does count. Having in that longer length, having a little bit of extra material on the end definitely lets you hook in more on the groomers, but doesn't mean that it's gonna that it's going to keep you from making quicker turns.
Yep.
And we did have pretty soft snow that day, so made it easier on made it easier on the knees and the feet for sure.
Yep. Cool. Now, Marcus, you're kind of in a similar position as Bob. You got to ski both the 183 and the 189, and you've probably skied every version of the Bonafide since its existence. So what do you think? Everything that Keenan and Bob said, does that hold true to you?
It definitely holds true. I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I say that because I was the opposite of Keenan. I started with like a Brahma back in the day. And I was like, I went with a longer one. And I was like, wow, this is really stiff. And then I went, kept going on. I never really got into the Bonafide just because I was like, oh man, I don't know if this is for me.
Yep.
And this test was a pleasant surprise, like I said, because we dropped into a trail that was it was all bumped up. It was fresh snow. We were on a longer pair of skis, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a crazy ride. It's gonna be pretty stiff. So my initial thought was kind of different than when I got to the bottom, being like, wow, this thing is super versatile. The flex pattern is completely different.
Yeah.
Everything really was just so different from that original model I tried 6-7 years ago, whatever it was. And I was psyched. My smile on my face, other than the powder that was just blasting us, was amazing because it was a great ski, and Blizzard really has changed such a ski that I probably wouldn't want to something now that I really do want. And the versatility and the length was great. Like Bob said, it's like, if you want that extra tail, it's there. And if you want to go shorter for the other one, for any other reason of bumps, it's still there. It's the ski, no matter what length, was still there for my size range. And I think the tallest in the group. I don't know. Keenan and I had to sit back to back again.
You and
but
Keenan would have to go back.
Yeah.
We'll have to do it back to back after quarantine.
Yeah, exactly. But it was such a great ski, and I'm really impressed by the construction and how it's changed for everybody. Like Keenan said earlier, it's like more people can get on it now. You don't have to be that super strong, aggressive skier. You can kind of relax a little bit now. So
Well, I think that was quite a profound statement you make, and I'd have to kind of agree with it. And I think we can all agree that we've always enjoyed skiing the Bonafide, and it's always been a ski that I look at as a valuable ski in the industry in general. But now I would really see myself owning a pair because they're just a little bit more versatile, and you can still rip those Bonafide turns on them.
Yeah, it just became a lot more playful to me than it used to be before. Before I saw the stability, I saw the speed, everything you get out of it. But now I'm just finding that the playfulness, especially in the bumps, because I'm not a bump skier like Bob is. But I was able to still maneuver very well through there.
Right. People have left comments saying that it's unfair for Bob to test skis because he could ski a 220 centimeter 2x4 in the bumps and make that look good.
That still has not been tested yet.
Yes. Look out for the 220 centimeter 2x4 test next season. Guys, thank you. I think this was really cool. I hope our audience really enjoyed it. Is there anything that any of you want to add before we end?
Just good to talk about skis is all.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys at Bonafide.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys. It's been really fun for me to look through those all the footage from that day, because I kind of get to live vicariously through you guys in the past and see some of the days that I missed when I was broken.
I think it still looks like that on the mountain right now.
Yeah, it basically does. It's insane. It's like full winter up there still. All right. Anyways, thank you guys. I think we'll end there. And to our audience, let us know if you have any questions. If you want to reach out to any of these giant human beings that are surrounding me right now, I'm happy to relay questions to those guys. So thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.